getting on to the goal scoring chase with the 2 goals he scored for the Washington Capitals the other night. Really awesome to see Alexander Ovechkin, who I think picked up an injury at some point in training camp. Well, actually during a preseason game.
He was questionable for that game.
He looks fine to me.
The amazing thing about this guy is just how long he hasn't, like, he's been able to play without a precipitous fall off in his goal rates. Like, I used to work with David Amber at Sportsnet, and literally like 3-4 years ago, David Amber was talking, like, we'd be backstage on Saturday night at hockey night, and Ovechkin would score, and he'd be talking about this Gretzky record, and he'd be doing the math. And I was like, David, you're nuts. Because as much as I admire Ovechkin, think it's great what he's doing, like, he's not going to keep scoring 40 to 50 a year in his mid-30s. But he is. Like, it's not 732 goals and he's at, Jullian. Like, think about that.
Yeah.
That's the equivalent of more than 14 50-goal seasons. Like, it's actually bananas that he's able to keep going. And, you know, I mean, look, we don't know. We don't have a crystal ball. He's got to be healthy to, you know, this is a longevity record, and he's been remarkably healthy over his career. He's missed like less than 50 games his whole NHL career. But if he's healthy, I don't see him not getting this. I mean, he signed a 5-year extension in the offseason. So that's enough for runway if you just start doing the math to pass Gretzky. And I think he's going to do it. And I think it's going to be really cool because any record that Wayne Gretzky's put his name on, you know, it feels like it's almost untouchable because the 80s just happened to be such a crazy decade for the scoring rates around the league. Obviously, Wayne was by far the top of that. But, like, you know, Wayne has like a 92-goal season. You know, his 215 point season, like stuff like that. As much as Connor McDavid is on another planet right now, like a crazy season for Connor is like 150 points probably at this point. And so the fact that we might be seeing one of the greatest records in the sport fall over these next couple of years with Ovechkin, I think will be celebrated. You know, I don't know how much you remember 2005, but when him and Crosby came in the league, so much was made of like this rivalry kind of thing. Like, yeah, it always felt a little bit played up. Like, it didn't feel that real to me, if you know what I'm saying. And obviously Pittsburgh and Washington played multiple playoff series. And I know that those two teams have had to kind of go through each other. And so that, like, you know, there is a rivalry there, but I think we're at the point now where we can just celebrate these two guys. Like, Crosby and Ovechkin are basically both going to retire on or close to like the Mount Rushmore of the sport. And, you know, I think we should all take a moment to go like, look, we're down to the last couple of years of these guys. Like, I don't know how long they're going to play, but it certainly doesn't feel like forever anymore. You know, we know we're getting the kind of last call here on them, and you know, let's celebrate his style. Let's watch Alex do his thing, and you know, I think he's going to do it. I'd be surprised now, honestly, if he didn't get the goal record rather than if he did. Like, that's how much it's turned in 4 years. And you know, shout out to my man David Amber because he was in on the ground floor of this one.
Shout out to the homie David Amber. I haven't met him yet, but we've had conversations.
He's the best.
He's a Syracuse alum as well. So we've had conversations about Syracuse, him and I. Also, to quote another one of our good friends, James Merle, I say he does it. I say Alexander Ovechkin, he's going to do this. Like, and I think I've said this on Sportsnet as well. If I'm Ted Leonsis, the owner of the Washington Capitals, every night I go to the locker room, I look at every player, I'm like, you do everything that you can to ensure that man, Alexander Ovechkin, breaks that goal record. And I get it. You know what? He's not going to have a 92 goal season like what Wayne Gretzky had. But the goaltending in those eras, let's be real here, the goaltending and everything else in those eras, very different than what Alexander Ovechkin had to play through now. That's not to diminish what Wayne Gretzky's had, which 92 goals in any league is like amazing. But like, Alexander Ovechkin has had to deal with, you know, the increased level of competition, more teams, obviously. Some of the coaches he's had to deal with over this last few years in terms of how they tried to change some of his playing styles has also contributed to this too. Could you imagine how many more goals he would have if he didn't have Adam Oates as his head coach? If he didn't have Dale Hunter as his head coach? Like, well, like, come on.
But come on. The thing, if you're going to play 15, 16, 17 years in a league, you're going to go through some shit. Like, that's just a fact, yes. Right? I mean, like, you're going to have off seasons, you're going to have injuries, you're going to have coaching issues or teammate issues. Like, no one has just a seamless path through life. I mean, you gotta push through, you know, some difficult moments. And so, you know, he's done that. I mean, he's also contended with, you know, a couple lockouts that cost the league some games. You know, he would have entered the year, I believe, in 2004 The 0405 lockout canceled the entire season, would have been his rookie year, most likely. So he would have another full season anyway. Plus, they lost half a season in 12-13. And then we had a pandemic, which cost some games, and a 56 game season last year. He could have played another 200 games by this point, but he's doing just well even without that fact. And it's going to be, I do think it's going to it's going to be like a ball rolling downhill. And with the new US TV partners, this is something they're going to get behind. It's really easy to understand, even if you don't understand the sports nuances. It's like a home run chase. You just like seeing a guy hit the ball out of the park. You like seeing someone fill the net, and Ovechkin continues to do that. And it's quite a spectacle.
We'll get to those US TV partners in a second here. I just wanted to call back to 2005 and those early days of Crosby versus Ovechkin. As a kid who didn't know any better, I see those two players being pitted against each other. I'm like, wow, this is awesome. But I also kind of feel like I had to pick between the two. If you're, for anyone who watches the show and remembers the Twilight movies, there's Team Edward and Team Jacob. I think that those are two names of two characters. I think the vampire and the werewolf. There was for me, there was Team Ovechkin or Team Crosby. And as a Canadian, obviously, you're Sidney Crosby's an amazing player. He's able to do all these amazing things. Sidney Crosby has as many goals, from the seat of his pants or finding a way to fall to the seat of his pants as some NHL players have had collectively in their careers. Whereas Alexander Ovechkin, especially early on in his career, the excitement, the flair, the fun, that drew me more to him. Not that I didn't like Sidney Crosby, but Alexander Ovechkin, the goal scoring, the jumping into the glass, the hot stick, the goal of the century, as far as I'm concerned, against the Arizona Coyotes. Who was head coach at the time? Wayne freaking Gretzky. He's looking up at the Jumbotron God damn, he did that. Alexander Ovechkin, to me.
Do you know what is so cool? Austin Matthews was in the building that day as a little kid.
Really?
And he said that was a defining moment in his life. He was in the building in Arizona when that happened. You think of the little bit of magic that's in the universe. That to me is a little sprinkle of magic, because the fact that Austin Matthews came from where he came from and is the player that he is he's the equivalent of an alien, right? No one plays hockey by accident. That's the biggest challenge of our sport is, someone has to put blades on your feet and find ice and allow you to learn how to navigate that. And then obviously, build a skill set on that. It's not as simple as, playing down at the park on basketball hoop or with soccer ball, where I think that can just happen more naturally for kids. And, Austin Matthews was in the building. Emily Kaplan, shout out to her. She wrote a great piece on Austin on ESPN, and he talked about that in her story. But I'd heard that story before as well, just being around Austin a little bit here in Toronto, and that's the magic of what this whole thing is, man. That's what we're hoping for. People used to hate on Gary Bettman for taking teams to untraditional places. Well, guess what? When you have teams at untraditional places, you open up the possibility that athletes that would have done something else come to your sport. Austin would probably be a baseball player, honestly, if he didn't fall in love with the Coyotes, and it was only because the Coyotes were playing in Arizona and he was, growing up in Scottsdale. So, I love that the NHL wants to take games to Mexico. I think as much as we can expose the sport to the world, we should, because you want the best athletes coming into your sport and doing great things. And I think that's what Crosby and Ovechkin did. They reached an audience beyond just the traditional folks that were going to watch games anyway. And, they've helped spawn this next generation. And, hopefully now Matthews and McDavid and McKinnon and all the great players in the league now can do that for future generations.
I'm trying to remember, you mentioned the Mexico thing. Is that out there anywhere? I don't remember coming across that, or maybe I just missed that. Or is the NHL close to that at all? That seems really interesting.
Yeah, it sounds like they're making plans to take a preseason game there at some point. I think that they're just recognizing it's a market they should get into. I mean, look, they have teams in places with a lot where a lot of Mexicans live. I'm sure the Coyotes wouldn't mind going there. The teams in Texas. Dallas Stars wouldn't probably mind playing there at some point.
California.
So, yeah, exactly. I think that, they're going to start small, but, the NFL's had games there. Other leagues are getting into what's a big country. And I just think it's a natural extension of the league. And so it's not like they're going to put a franchise there anytime soon or anything like that. But I do think you'll see at least some neutral site games there and trying to get into that market a little bit. And, you probably want to use a guy like Austin Matthews. Like his mom is from Mexico. He speaks some Spanish, and he certainly grew up appreciating, what that country's all about and the way of life there. And so, why wouldn't you, if one of your most marketable stars has a natural connection, it's not a forced thing. Like, why wouldn't you try to open up that market? And again, you just need to find one player from there, and it's worth it, I would argue. And so, let's celebrate the places we can take this game, not try to keep it so provincial or so Canadian or so whatever. I think that we should want to see it played more places around the world and get more special athletes coming to our sport.